It's March 14th, 1986. Pontiac Correctional Center, Illinois. Correctional Officer Philip Wilken climbs the steel stairs of the West Cell House, running the feed line as inmates return from dinner. Gallery 8, Gallery 9. He reaches Gallery 10, unlocks a gate, admits 2 inmates. He does not see them coming. 9 men converge. The first shank plunges into his back, then another, and another. 6 wounds in seconds. The final blade lodges in his spine. Wilken staggers down the stairwell, blood trailing behind him, a knife protruding from his back. He collapses. Inmates watch. No one helps. 150 miles south, at Menard Correctional Center, a man named Gustavo Colon receives word. His orders have been carried out. But to understand how one gang could command such violence from behind prison bars, we need to go back to Chicago's Humboldt Park. In 1950, exactly 255 Puerto Ricans lived in Chicago. By 1960, that number exploded to over 32,000. They came seeking factory jobs and a better life, settling in Humboldt Park and West Town on the city's northwest side. What they found was hostility. Italian and Greek greaser gangs ruled these streets. Puerto Rican teenagers were attacked for walking to school. They were beaten for speaking Spanish. They were told they didn't belong. So they did what any group facing extinction does. They organized. Summer of 1963. A group called the Skulls operates near Ohio and Kedzie, fighting constant battles with white gangs. They connect with other Puerto Rican youths scattered across the neighborhood. One of them, a 14-year-old named Cookie, suggests a name for their new alliance: the Latin Kings. On May 15, 1964, it becomes official. A sunny Friday afternoon in Humboldt Park. Several Puerto Rican gangs gather in the actual park itself: the Imperials, the Skulls, and others. They establish tenets. They adopt colors, black and gold. They create a symbol, a 5-pointed crown, representing love, respect, sacrifice, honor, and obedience. The almighty Latin King nation is born. Their original purpose is protection and cultural pride, fighting discrimination, defending their people. But the streets of Chicago have a way of corrupting noble intentions. June 12, 1966. Chicago's first Puerto Rican Day Parade. Mayor Richard Daley has declared it Puerto Rican Week. Thousands celebrate on Division Street near Humboldt Park. Then, a white police officer named Thomas Munyon shoots a young Puerto Rican man named Aracelis Cruz. The neighborhood explodes. Over 4,000 Puerto Ricans clash with police for 3 days. Buildings burn. Businesses are destroyed. The Latin Kings are in the middle of it, fighting alongside their community. The aftermath reshapes Chicago's gang landscape. White residents flee West Humboldt Park in panic. The Latin Kings seize abandoned territory. They absorb rival gangs, the Noble Knights, the Jokers, the Spanish Kings. Beach and Spalding becomes their headquarters, the most legendary Latin King corner in history. Among the young soldiers rising through the ranks is a barrel-chested teenager from Humboldt Park named Gustavo Colon. Intense eyes, a natural leader. By 16, he commands respect through fear. June 27, 1971. Colon stands outside at Potomac and Levitt in Wicker Park. A young black man named Burr walks by with friends. Another Latin king, Florentino Menendez, points at Burr and shouts an order. Colon raises his gun and fires. Burr runs. Colon shoots him 3 more times in the back as he falls to the pavement. Then Colon walks to a girl in Burr's group, puts the gun to her head, smiles, and pulls the trigger. The gun jams. 2 months later, police arrest Colon. In 1972, he's convicted of murder and sentenced to 30 to 60 years. That same year, Raul Gonzalez, leader of the Southside Latin Kings, also catches a murder charge. Both men enter Illinois State Prison, expecting their power to end. Instead, behind those walls, they would build something far more dangerous than any street gang. They would build an empire. The Illinois prison system in the early 1970s was a world unto itself. Gangs controlled the cell blocks, the yards, the kitchens. Guards were outnumbered and often outmaneuvered. For men like Gustavo Colon and Raul Gonzalez, incarceration wasn't punishment. It was opportunity. Colon rose quickly through the ranks behind bars. By the mid-1970s, he had claimed the title of Corona, supreme leader of the North Side Latin Kings. Gonzalez, known as Baby King, controlled the South. Together, they transformed a street gang into a prison-based criminal organization. The irony was almost absurd. Colon became more powerful inside than he ever was on the streets. At Maynard Correctional Center, he was given special treatment. He had the key to his own room in the honor dorm. He wandered the grounds freely while other inmates sat locked in their cells. Phone calls, visits, smuggled letters all became channels for his orders. The prison system had created a king, then handed him his throne. A 1985 Justice Department study confirmed what everyone already knew. Illinois had the most gang-ridden prison system in the country, and no gang wielded more power than the Latin Kings. But threats were emerging. In April 1978, Larry Hoover, leader of the Black Gangster Disciples, organized a work stoppage at Stateville Prison. Inmates protested rotten food and brutal treatment. Most prisoners supported Hoover, even his rivals. In the aftermath, Hoover and his allies formed an unofficial brotherhood. By 1979, it had a name, Folks. By 1980, the Folks Alliance became official, organized behind bars with written rules and mutual protection pacts. Gangster Disciples, Satan Disciples, Spanish Cobras, Simon City Royals, all united under one banner. The Latin Kings faced a choice: join or fight. They chose to fight. In 1981, the People Nation was born. Jeff Fort of the El Rukns invited the Latin Kings, Vice Lords, Black P. Stones, and Mickey Cobras to a gathering at the Fort, El Rukn headquarters on the south side. Islamic doctrines blended with Christian beliefs. A spiritual alliance formed. The Latin Kings became the largest Hispanic gang under the People umbrella. War lines hardened, people versus folks. On the streets and behind bars, every gang in Chicago now belonged to one side or the other. And the Latin Kings intended to prove which side was stronger. The proof came in blood. In 1981, a Latin king named Carlos Robles disrespected Baby King inside Stateville. The insult couldn't stand. Baby King approached Lord Gino for permission to handle the problem. Permission was granted. 2 Latin kings were selected for the HET, a cold-blooded Cuban and a small white man Gino had taken under his wing. They attacked Robles, killed him, then dismembered his body. A gangster disciple working in the prison butcher shop, was offered drugs and money to grind the body parts in the commercial meat grinder. That night, the dinner menu at Stateville read meatloaf. The Latin kings and GDs spread the word among themselves. Don't eat on the main line tonight. Inmates who didn't know the recipe ate their meals, while gang members smiled and passed their trays to others. Carlos Robles was officially listed as an escapee. His skull was dug up in the Stateville yard in 1995. By the mid-1980s, crack cocaine had transformed Chicago's drug economy. The Latin Kings adapted immediately. No longer just a street gang, they became a narcotics empire. Colon ran operations from his cell. His wife Marisol served as his eyes and ears on the outside, connecting him via conference calls to lieutenants distributing cocaine from an apartment building at 2420 North Kedzie Avenue. Money poured in, millions annually from drugs, gambling dens, and extortion rackets. The Latin Kings had become organized crime. But power requires maintenance. The Folks Alliance was growing. Correctional officers were interfering with drug operations inside the prisons. The Latin Kings needed to send a message, something that would echo through every cell block in Illinois. In March 1986, they found their target, a young guard at Pontiac named Philip Wilken, who made the mistake of doing his job. Pontiac Correctional Center sat 100 miles southwest of Chicago, a crumbling fortress holding 2,000 inmates in a facility designed for 1,400. Overcrowding ran 40% above capacity. Violence was constant. Guards found weapons hidden in sealed paint cans, shanks crafted from bed frames, blades sharpened on concrete floors. The gangs ran Pontiac. Everyone knew it. The gangster disciples controlled certain cell houses. The vice lords held others. And the Latin Kings, with their black and gold, had established dominance through a simple principle: cross them and die. A hit list existed. 30 correctional officers marked for violence. The criteria was straightforward. Anyone who threatened Latin King drug operations inside the prison became a target. Anyone who wrote up gang members, searched cells too thoroughly, or disrupted the flow of cocaine through the facility would face consequences. The orders came from Lord Gino himself, 150 miles away at Menard. No one could authorize a hit on a correctional officer without approval from the coroner. This was law. This was structure. This was how empires maintained discipline. In early 1986, a name reached Gino's attention: Philip Wilken, young, professional, the kind of guard who came to work to actually do his job. He enforced rules. He wrote reports. He was becoming a problem. The order went out. Wilken needed to be dealt with. March 14, 1986, Friday afternoon, the West Cell House at Pontiac. Wilken starts his shift at 3 o'clock. His assignment is running the feed line, escorting inmates from their galleries to the dining hall and back, locking gates behind each group. It's routine work, tedious, dangerous, only if you let your guard down. The afternoon passes without incident. Inmates file to dinner. Wilken moves efficiently, gallery by gallery, key ring jangling against his hip. 4:30. Inmates begin returning from the dining hall. Wilken works his way up through the cell house, admitting men to their galleries, securing gates behind them. Gallery 6, Gallery 7, Gallery 8. He climbs the steel stairs to Gallery 9, admits inmates, locks the gate, continues upward. Gallery 10. Wilken unlocks the gate and admits 2 inmates. He doesn't recognize them as threats. He doesn't see the others positioning themselves behind him. He turns to continue his rounds. 9 men converge. The first attacker grabs Wilken from behind, pinning his arms. A second steps forward with a shank, a 7-inch blade crafted from sharpened metal, wrapped at the handle with torn cloth. He drives it into Wilken's back. Wilken screams, tries to break free. Another blow lands, then another. The attackers work fast. 6 stab wounds to the back and torso in a matter of seconds. The final blade punches through muscle and lodges against his spine. The attacker doesn't bother removing it. They scatter, disappear into cells, melt into the population. Wilken stands alone on Gallery 10, blood soaking through his uniform, a knife handle protruding from his back. He staggers toward the stairs. 1 step, another. His vision blurs. His legs shake. He reaches the stairwell and begins descending. Blood trails behind him, marking each step. Inmates on lower galleries watch him pass. No one moves to help. No one calls for assistance. To help a targeted guard is to become a target yourself. Wilken collapses at the bottom of the stairwell. Other guards find him minutes later. Emergency alarms sound. The prison locks down. Medical staff rush Wilken to St. James Hospital in Pontiac. He survives, barely. 12 days in intensive care. 3 months recovering at home. The knife had come within millimeters of severing his spinal cord. When Wilken returns to work, the flashbacks begin. Every stairwell, every gallery, every inmate standing too close. His psychiatrist diagnoses post-traumatic stress disorder, the same condition afflicting combat veterans. 4 inmates are eventually identified: Selwyn Page, Selma Gedder, Lawyer Pace, and Christopher Robinson. In September 1986, their trial begins. The prosecution's case crumbles almost immediately. Witnesses won't talk. Dennis Ferguson admits he saw Wilken staggering down the stairs with a knife in his back, but claims he cannot identify any attackers. Courtney Gibson testifies that he turned away the moment the stabbing began. He saw nothing useful. The message reverberates through Pontiac, through Stateville, through Menard, through every prison in Illinois. Snitch on the Latin Kings and you're next. The attack was never just about Philip Wilken. It was a declaration. The Latin Kings could reach anyone, anywhere, even inside maximum security. Guards were not safe. Administrators were not safe. No one who challenged their power was safe. Throughout 1986, the violence accelerates. May 4th, Guard Gerald Zare assaulted. June 14th, Guard Orville Floyd assaulted. August 25th, Guard Dave Turner attacked. The Latin Kings are untouchable, and Lord Gino, sitting in his cell at Menard, has proven exactly what the crown means. The Wilken attack was only the beginning. September the 3rd, 1987. Pontiac Correctional Center. Robert Taylor, superintendent of the South Cell House, sits in his office reviewing paperwork. He has worked corrections for years. He knows the dangers. 4 inmates enter, all Latin Kings, all convicted murderers serving life sentences with nothing to lose. They stab Robert Taylor to death at his desk. The murder sends shockwaves through the Illinois correction system. A superintendent killed in his own office in broad daylight. The attackers acted on orders from Latin King leadership. No rank protects you. No office keeps you safe. July 1st, 1989. Stateville Correctional Center. Correctional Officer Lawrence Cush walks through the prison on a routine assignment. He doesn't know his name, appears on a list. He doesn't know the order for his death came directly from Lord Gino at Menard. Inmates attack Cush from behind with pipes and makeshift weapons. They beat him until he stops moving. He dies the following day. 3 men are indicted for the murder: William Cabrera, David Starks, Salvatore Giancana. Giancana dies before trial. Starks is spared the death penalty. Cabrera is convicted and sentenced, but the men who gave the orders remain untouched behind walls of loyalty and silence. By 1997, Gustavo Colon had served 26 years in state prison. His release date approached. Latin King underlings arranged a limousine to carry their leader from Menard back to Chicago in triumph. The coroner was coming home. 24 hours before his scheduled release, federal prosecutors filed an indictment. Colon and 13 other Latin kings were charged with operating a $6 million drug enterprise from inside prison walls. The evidence was devastating. Hundreds of hours of recorded phone calls captured Colon directing cocaine purchases, managing distribution, and conducting gang business from his cell. His wife Marisol served as the operator, connecting him to lieutenants via conference calls. The apartment at 2420 North Kedzie Avenue was identified as their Chicago distribution hub. The September 1997 trial revealed the full scope of the empire. Drug routes from Mexico through Texas into Chicago. Cocaine flooding Humboldt Park. Millions laundered through legitimate businesses. All controlled by a man who hadn't walked free since 1972. Colon was convicted on 20 of 21 counts. Marisol was convicted on 3. In the year 2000, a federal judge sentenced the coroner to life in prison. He was transferred to a federal facility in Kentucky. He would never see freedom again. But the Latin kings did not die with their leader's final imprisonment. By the 2000s, the Chicago faction had grown to over 20,000 members across 160 chapters in 31 states. The Bloodline faction Luis Felipe founded in New York added another 7,000. Federal prosecutions mounted. In 2011, Augustin Zambrano, who had claimed the Corona title, received 60 years. In 2016, 34 Latin kings faced racketeering charges. In 2018, 21 members were imprisoned for conspiracy involving 2 murders. The names changed. The structure remained. The King Manifesto, written in 1972, still governed. The 5-pointed crown still marked territory from Chicago to Connecticut. A retired detective put it simply: when you compare them to other street gangs, like the Bloods and Crips, none compare to the organization of the Latin kings. Today, Lord Gino sits in federal custody. Over 50 years have passed since that June night in 1971 when he killed Glenn Burr on a Humboldt Park street. He has petitioned for release multiple times. Each request has been denied. The gang he built from behind bars has outlived every attempt to destroy it. What began as Puerto Rican teenagers fighting for survival in 1950s Chicago became one of the largest criminal organizations in America, built not on the streets, but from inside prison walls. The 1986 Pontiac attack proved what the Latin kings already knew. The crown doesn't fall. It just finds a new head to wear it.